Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to welcome you to this next session of the Atlantic Council's inaugural conference here in Abu Dhabi on global energy. And the discussion of today's topic, this topic, is the future of peaceful global nuclear energy. We have, to be completely honest, the rock stars of the nuclear energy industry here with us today, and we're going to hear from them shortly. So, nuclear energy. An interesting statistic. A kilogram of nuclear energy has approximately 2 to 3 million times as much energy as a kilogram of oil or coal. Tremendous potential from that source of energy. And of course, it is a very controversial source of energy. Sometimes when we hear somebody talking about a very angry response, they'll say someone is going nuclear, or people will talk about the nuclear option. So there are some negative connotations with this energy, and yet it is an important part of the energy mix. And so here to talk to us about that today, we have a panelist and a keynote speaker. Addressing us first as a keynote speaker will be Dr. Cho Hwan-ik, who is the CEO of Korea Electric Power Corporation. Dr. Cho was also previously a Vice Minister of Commerce, Industry, and Energy in Korea, and also is a chair at Hanyang University and holds a PhD in Business Administration. Following Dr. Cho's comments, we'll be joined by a panel that includes His Excellency Minister Jan Mládek, who is the Minister of Industry, Trade, and a member of the Chamber of Deputies of the Parliament of the Czech Republic. Minister Jan also has had previous ministerial portfolios as Deputy Minister in the Ministry of Economy, the Ministry of Finance, and previously as the Minister of Agriculture. We also have with us today Dr. Kun-mo Chung, who is the Senior Advisor to the President and CEO of Korea Electric Power Corporation. Dr. Chung was a previous Minister of Science and Technology 2 times in Korea. He was also formerly the President of the General Conference of the International Atomic Energy Agency of the United Nations and the Vice Chairman of the World Energy Council. He is also a member of the International Advisory Board for the UAE Nuclear Energy Program. We also have with us Ms. Anne Lavarjon. Ms. Anne Lavarjon is the Chair and CEO of ALP-SA, a French advisory and services company. She's more famous in the nuclear sector as having been the longtime CEO of Areva, where she garnered the nickname Atomic Anne. Some people have talked about that as her affiliation to Areva, but I know it's because of her tremendous energy and drive. Finally, we also have Dr. Daniel Poneman, or Mr. Daniel Poneman, who is the Chief Executive of Centrus Energy. Prior to that, he served as the Deputy Secretary of Energy in the United States and held numerous positions in the US government related to non-proliferation and nuclear policy. Dr. Poneman received a AB and a J degree from Harvard University. And finally, we're joined by Mr. Mohammed El-Hamadi. His Excellency, Mr. El-Hamadi, is the Chief Executive Officer of the Emirates Nuclear Energy Corporation. He spoke to us earlier today, and I don't think requires further introduction to that. So with that, I would like to invite Dr. Cho to please come up and share his remarks. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Excellencies and ladies and gentlemen. I am Hwan-ik Cho, CEO of Korea Electric Power Corporation, which is the counterpart of ENEC in the Baraka project. I'm very pleased to make a keynote address at this special forum, which I believe will give a deep insight into the world energy industry in this rapidly transitioning period. Before start, I also should express my sincere condolences to the family of those who lost their lives in the terrorist attack in Afghanistan on January 10th, including diplomats of the UAE and especially the cousin of my friend, Mr. Hamadi, CEO of ENEC. I strongly condemn such a terrorist violence which take innocent lives and cause uncured pain for their loved ones. Now, let me begin my speech on nuclear energy by stressing that non-proliferation regime based on NPT and IAEA safeguard system is the cornerstone of global peace and security and preconditions for peaceful nuclear energy. Moreover, such belief should be shared by all countries that use nuclear energy. As many of you know, Korea has the fifth largest generation capacity of nuclear energy with 25 reactors. It is Korea's strong determination that nuclear energy should be used for peace and the prosperity of the civilization of mankind, and that nuclear energy should be strictly monitored by international regulation systems. In this regard, nuclear power generation is to elevate the level of industry and thereby develop more sophisticated and high-tech industries. In fact, without efficient, affordable, and stable source of electric power coming from nuclear power generation, it is not easy to have precision, high-tech industry. This is why Korea is considered to have one of the strongest industrial competitiveness in fields of high-tech industry, such as semiconductors, electric consumer goods, and mobile. Since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution in the early 19th century, the world's population has grown 7 times, with the increase of production and energy consumption by 100 times and 42 times, respectively. However, this has led to the increase of CO2 concentration in the atmosphere by 40% during that period. Also, the average temperature has increased by 0.85 degrees Celsius, while the sea level has risen by 19 centimeters. As we all know, only this level of climate change already caused a lot of disasters to human beings in many areas of the world. As such, climate change has become a common challenge over time for these generations. In December 2015, 195 countries around the world signed a new climate change agreement in Paris, and the countries started to make efforts to limit the global temperature rise 2 degrees Celsius by 2030 above pre-industrial levels. In fact, about 80% of countries participating in the Paris Agreement already ratified the agreement in their parliaments. The Korean government also announced its commitment to the world that it will reduce the level of greenhouse gas by 37% until 2030. With close cooperation with the government, KECO has been actively advancing not only conventional carbon-reducing technologies such as CCS, carbon capturing storage, USC, ultra-supercritical, and coal-to-gas, but also new energy-saving industry, including renewables, ESS, electric vehicle charging, microgrid, smart factory, home energy management system, smart city, and so on. However, at this point, I'd like to emphasize that we cannot afford to make a mistake to underestimate the fact that nuclear energy is indispensable to answer for climate change and the sustainable development of civilizations. Now, we are entering the era of so-called fourth industrial revolution based on IoT, AI, VR or AR, cloud and big data, drones and robots. For the successful use of such technology, very stable supply of electric power is essential. And it is nuclear energy that enables stable supply of electricity to respond to such demand. This is why the value of nuclear energy should be re-evaluated and recognized. At the same time, In order to safely operate and manage nuclear energy, highly developed security technology is also required. New technologies such as VR, IoT, and AI allow nuclear energy to be operated more safely. In other words, nuclear energy and the fourth industrial revolution have an indispensable and mutually complementary relationship. The success of fourth industrial revolution depends on the stable supply of electric power through nuclear energy, while the safety of nuclear energy relies on the success of the fourth industrial revolution. At the UN Development Summit held in the UN headquarters in New York, 2015, Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, were adopted by 193 countries. As you know, sustainable development is not possible without sustainable energy supply. However, 1.2 billion people around the world still do not have access to electric power. Thus, the former UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon launched the Sustainable Energy for All, SA4 initiative. It aims to ensure universal access to energy and preserve the environment. Fossil fuel is not the right answer at this moment to protect the environment of the world. Renewable energy can be and should be a right answer to cure such a problem. However, renewable energy still has a long way to go until it becomes a stable and main energy source. So I believe that nuclear energy can play a critical role in providing general access to electric power at this stage. Moreover, Korea is on the forefront of an effort to expand peaceful nuclear energy. In order to share the benefits of nuclear energy with the broader international community, Korea has continuously contributed to the Peaceful Use Initiative, PUI project, along with the IAEA. We are also promoting cooperation through various channels such as Coordinated Research Project, CRP, and IAEA Program of Action for Cancer Therapy, PACT, and program to establish education infrastructure. Korea is also making great efforts to develop not only research and commercial reactors, but also innovative nuclear technology, including pyroprocessing, SFRs, sodium-cooled fast reactors, and VHTRs, very high temperature reactors. As such, we are creating added values by expanding the use of peaceful nuclear energy. 6 years have passed since the Fukushima nuclear accident. Following the accident, some European countries like Germany and Switzerland have canceled or substantially scaled down their policies to expand or introduce nuclear power plant. However, not a few countries have believed nuclear power plants are necessary and inevitable, and resumed construction based on much strength safety regulations. And they are cautiously looking for the potential of a new MPP project. The international community took Fukushima accident as a momentum to be reminded of the importance of nuclear safety and to reaffirm that nuclear safety is the most essential element for sustainable development of nuclear energy. Since Fukushima accident, the Korean government and businesses have carried out the most strict safety assessment and fully implemented 56 additional measures to highly enhance the safety of our nuclear power plants, to the extent that they are considered even excessively safe. The Baraka nuclear power plant of the UAE have also reflected such strength safety measures in their design and construction. So I have a great faith in that they can meet the world's highest standard of safety and be the world's most efficient nuclear power plants. Panelists and distinguished participants, today I have spoken about my views and my country's activities on nuclear non-proliferations, response to change in the energy environment, the opportunities of nuclear energy in the fourth industrial revolutions, the expansion of peaceful nuclear energy and nuclear safety. But the most important message that I want to leave is this: our belief in peaceful nuclear energy and compliance with related regulation will lead to the prosperity and growth of nations, as well as richness and happiness of individuals. Lastly, as Abu Dhabi prepares for the next 100 years of the UAE through nuclear cooperation with Korea, I hope more countries around the world can prepare for their future through peaceful use of nuclear energy. I also expect that this nuclear session will hold fruitful and constructive discussions. Also, I hope that whole Abu Dhabi Forum will create very productive and successful results. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Cho, for your comments. Now, as we transition to a panel discussion, I want to make a few reminders. Panelists should remember that the session is on the record. We'd also like to remind the audience that they can tweet using hashtag #ACEnergyForum during the session. And so we're going to dive right into some questions. And maybe I'll start with the first question directed to you. Today, giving a little context, we have low natural gas prices in the United States. Some nuclear plants have closed there because of economic reasons. In Europe, Germany, other countries have made a decision to move away from nuclear energy. And yet, we have this problem, as Dr. Cho mentioned, global energy poverty. In that context, what is the future of nuclear energy, and what role does it have as we hear about the advent of renewables and others?
What a question. What a question. Thank you very much, David, and good afternoon to all of you. It's always a pleasure to be in the Atlantic Council Global Energy Forum. I think that it is very difficult to speak about the energy mix for the future, because we are experiencing now revolutionary times. We are, maybe it's a little bit like, as it was mentioned during the Industrial Revolution, the first Industrial Revolution. We are now in the third, I think, energy revolution. The first one that was with coal and the use of steam. The second one that was oil and electricity. And now it's clear that we are under a strong constraint, first to deliver energy for the maximum of people on a growing number of people on the planet, less CO2 emissions. And we have also to consider the use of space. And as I think you are going to speak about to us about non-proliferation. So a lot of constraints. So to describe the energy mix for the future, it's very difficult. Of course, you have a lot of experts giving scenarios, and I think that the International Energy Agency has made a fantastic job 1 year ago about different scenarios, and the scenario with 2 degrees more on the planet is not with the current 11% of nuclear energy, but 18% of nuclear energy. But I think that if we want to have a real development of nuclear energy for the future, it means first safety. So safety, it means safety in the design of the new nuclear and existing nuclear, safety in the organization of the different players, utilities, but also suppliers, good level of safety authorities, appropriate regulations, also in the culture of habits of people, and I think that safety has to be an obsession. So safety is a prerequisite, and I think that we must have, for the future, international standards. The second motto for me is public acceptance. And of course, after Fukushima, it's a special difficulty. And look at the situation in Japan. They have the majority of their nuclear plants, they didn't restart. So public acceptance is also the second motto. And I think that public acceptance means a real dialogue, a real respect of the different communities, the different people. You don't choose your opponents. You have your opponents. You have to accept that. And you have to accept the fears, the passions. So it's highly political, I think. And of course, it has to be made globally and country by country and region by region. And third, I think that it is innovation. Innovation is also absolutely mandatory for the future of nuclear. We have started 60 years ago in a way of, okay, we are going to build nuclear plants on site with a common design. So I think the future, it's my vision, maybe I'm wrong, but my vision is to have more and more modular reactors built like airplanes in factories and installed afterwards on site. And it's absolutely key because profitability, competitiveness is also key for the future. And I think the future of nuclear industry is somewhere a lot in the hands at this stage of the different governments, of the decisions made, like for instance, here in Abu Dhabi about new nuclear. It was a decision made by the government, but also it depends upon the capacity of the different players to be at the same time very reliable, but at the same time very innovative, which is not easy with the safety authorities. Loving to fix the things and loving to rely on proven technologies, proven things, and so on. Well, so it's a little bit paradoxical, but that's the situation where we are, in my view.
Well, let's follow up, if we don't mind, on that theme of nuclear industry being in the hands of governments to some extent. And Your Excellency, Minister Mladic, I'd like to hear, what's the view from the Czech Republic about the future of nuclear energy?
Yeah. Good afternoon. I would like to thank Atlantic Council to have possibility to discuss this challenging topic. I am representing a country that is in nuclear energy 55 years. We have started as Czechoslovakia in 60s. We are running now 4 nuclear reactors in the Czech Republic, and we would like to build new ones because we are seeing it as the only way how to realistically fulfill this target of carbon-less economy in 2100. Because without that, it's impossible. What are the challenges we are facing at this moment? Paradoxically, it's not so much neither Chernobyl or Fukushima directly, but indirectly. Why not directly? Because for the Czech population, Chernobyl was explained by normal Soviet disorder, what is not our problem. Japan was explained that we are better off because we don't have earthquake and we don't have tsunami, so no problem. But it's an indirect problem because in Germany they are thinking otherwise. In Germany they have decided already nearly 10 years before Fukushima to go out of the nuclear energy. But in that time, for many years, industry was not serious about it. They believe that it's a wave of public discontent and they will overcome it and they will continue in development of the nuclear sites. However, then came Fukushima. Immediately after Fukushima came a political backlash, and in Baden-Württemberg, the Green Party was the winner of the election. They had first prime minister of one state of Germany, and Mrs. Merkel decided to turn around the policy of leading party and decided to join the forces which are anti-nuclear. And now it's serious. Germany is deadly serious to close nuclear power stations. They are closing them, and it's not making our situation very easy inside the EU to promote nuclear development of the nuclear energy. Czech Republic, together with other two Visegrad countries, Slovakia and Hungary, are proponents of using nuclear in the Europe. We are organizing the yearly conference about development of nuclear sites in Europe. I must say that another negative story in this site came because of Brexit, because UK was another big supporter of development of the nuclear energy. They are planning to build Hinkley Point C. There is precedence how to provide the guarantees for the building of this nuclear site through contract for difference. Unfortunately, and that was not yet discussed here, Britain is now inside the EU something like a lame duck, because they are one leg in, one leg out, and it's such a country is not having such a say in solving the issues of the future of European Union if they should be out in a maximum 2 years time. So it's making the situation more difficult. What is the biggest problem inside the Czech Republic? Inside Czech Republic is financing or guarantee for financing, because the problem of the company which should build nuclear sites is they are not sure whether they will be able to finance, to cover the all costs of the nuclear blocks. Because in Europe, basically the policy is like this. If you are going renewable, you can subsidize heavily. And if you are trying to develop the standard source of electricity, you are not allowed. It's like state aid, public aid, and basically it's not open. So the way would be this British example, the contract for difference, which is basically telling that either we will collect the money for financing nuclear plant from the consumers, or the government pay the difference. That's why contract for difference. However, Czech government refused it in the same type of contract in April 2014. Why is that? Because we have horrible and painful experience with subsidizing photovoltaic electricity. We had such a bad scheme that which was finished in 2010, that we are now paying $2 billion subsidies for renewables yearly. And it's very painful for both, for taxpayers and consumers for the electricity. So our problem is paradoxical, because for Czech population, the nuclear is completely acceptable. We have 70% approval rate for running nuclear power stations. But the same people do not want to provide any guarantees for building nuclear, because they are afraid of repetition of the same story what happened with the black panels.
So interesting insights. The departure of the UK from the EU weakens the coalition in favor of nuclear energy, and same story everywhere. People would like to have it, but people don't want to necessarily pay for it. I know that we're building in Korea and the UAE, so I'm going to bypass those two panelists for just a moment and turn to Dan Poneman. Dan, Centrus is in the business of providing fuel services for nuclear power plants. Many of your customers around the world, but also in the United States. The US, the nuclear industry is facing some challenges. How do you see the future of the nuclear industry there?
In the United States, Dave, it's a mixed picture, and I'm very happy that we are building, for the first time in 30 years, we are building the first commercial plants. The first one in this century actually went online last year at Watts Bar, and we have representation here from the Southern Company, which is building the Vogtle power plants. And the eyes of the world are on these reactors, and this is a tremendous win. At the same time, one of the famous CEOs in our industry, John Rowe of Exelon, many years ago said, in a merchant market, for nuclear to be competitive requires a $25 price on carbon and $8 price of gas, of which we have 0 out of 2 at the moment. And therefore, in a merchant market, it is still very, very challenging. And in fact, that's why it is in the regulated markets that you see these units being built in South Carolina and in Georgia. Now, when we have the results of Paris, and you have people around the world seeing that we're going to actually need to probably double, overall, globally speaking, the fleet of nuclear power, that does induce greater interest in the United States as well. But we have to do better at the United States in leveling the playing field among the different competing energy sources now. To me, you have to look at minimizing carbon. And if we permit the continuation of a war between renewables and nuclear, we're going to have a problem meeting those targets. And that's why I was very interested to hear His Excellency Minister Suhail Al-Mazroui this morning talking about the need for balance and the 50-50. I think this brand new vision is a very positive way to come at this thing, to recognize we're of course going to continue to rely on fossil fuels for many years yet to come, especially in the transportation sector, but we need to double down on the nuclear. And what that means is where you have nuclear plants under challenge, which we've now had in successive occasions in the state of New York and the state of Illinois, you can do things that level the playing field in terms of providing credits in the absence of a price on carbon that will substitute for that kind of situation. You have now had a Democratic governor in the state of New York and a Republican governor in the state of Illinois support decisions which have led 4 nuclear power stations to be kept open, which otherwise would close. So not only do we need to be building new reactors, Dave, but we need to be keeping the existing fleet alive. And just to put some perspective on this, those reactors in Illinois, the Quad Cities reactor and Clinton reactors, those provide 25,000 gigawatt hours per year of clean energy. And if you take all the new build, and you heard the great statistics, and I'm a big fan of renewables, of the new build in wind and solar in that same state in the year 2015, it was 659 gigawatt hours. So nuclear provides carbon-free electricity at a ratio in that instance of 40-1. So if we are indeed serious about the things that the UAE has been such a leader on, then we've got to be serious about making all carbon-free forms of energy competitive. And in the absence of a universal price on carbon, I think some of those additional factors where the reliability of nuclear is rewarded, where the always-on reliable provision of power, no matter what the weather is, when the gas lines freeze, when the coal piles freeze, nuclear keeps on humming along. So those are the kinds of things we're looking at in the United States. And maybe to help you pivot, we're all also very much looking at UAE, because the successful operation of the Baraka project is something that actually gives a lot of hope to us in the United States as to a future path that we might also pursue.
Excellent, thank you very much. So, moving away from locations where nuclear is facing challenges, there are 2 countries represented here, Korea and the UAE. Both are actively building plants and at quite a rapid scale. I'd like to ask you to reflect some of the rationale that's behind the national decision to embrace nuclear energy and to continue to build when the rest of the world is challenged to come to the same decision. Maybe we'll start, if it's okay, to give the guest the first opportunity to respond. Dr. Chung, we'll ask you to respond first, and then we'll ask our colleague, His Excellency Mr. Al-Hamadi, to respond.
Thank you, David. I'd like to point out that 60 years ago, 1957, we formed International Atomic Energy Forum, agency, IAEA. And at the time, our country was one of the poorest countries in the world. But our leadership saw the future and set up the vision for the future based on brain powers, brain resources. So since our country did not have enough natural resources, our president said, in the future, we have to rely on cultivation of brain resources. That's how our nuclear activities started. Now, since then, we saw the development of Korea. Now, you heard about Han River miracle, and that's economic achievement. And then we say the people power. We gained free democracy through people's desire. And now, almost everybody in the world knows Korean wave. So this kind of achievement is based on the vision on brain resources. Now, I remember the exciting years of this early development because we saw nuclear power should be based on education and science technology development. And the result is that now Korea has become a donor nation, sharing the hope with other emerging and least developed nations. This is a remarkable sort of example for world development. I really appreciate our cooperation with the UAE because Korea was the first exporting nation among emerging nations, and the UAE first new entry in the nuclear power generation. And the Baraka project showed how well we can execute that complicated project. Now, our President Cho mentioned about fourth industrial revolution. Now, nuclear energy power plant can and has been already incorporating the basic element of fourth industrial revolution, utilizing all IT technologies and also big data manipulation, and also we can have real-time communication among 25 power reactors operating in Korea. The reference plant for Baraka units, then Shingori 1 is successfully operating since December. So that is first successfully operating generation 3+ nuclear power plant. And we are looking forward in the future, and we want to work together with many nations so that we can provide the supply for increasing electricity of this world. Now, in order to do that, we are not only maintaining current technical development, but also futuristic technological development. In France, in Kadarashi, Korean engineers are now building fusion experimental facility, and I'm so happy for such international cooperation. And also, 2 months ago, we started a new research center called ATOM, Autonomous, Transportable, On-Demand Reactor, so that we can operate automatically, utmost safely, power reactors in any distributed load centers too. So I hope we can work together all over the world and provide the electricity supply to not only developed nations, but also developing nations. That does not exclude the United States, because we are now conducting the NRC design certificate very successfully, and as of today, we do expect to have the review done on time and in 2018, so that we can work together even in the United States.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jung. Mr. Hamadi, could you talk to us about the rationale behind the decision to grow nuclear energy and develop a nuclear program here in the UAE?
Thank you, David. First of all, the last person to speak in the panel is always challenging, so I'll try my best to bring the energy level up. First of all,
there are more questions to come, don't worry.
No. Thank you, David. So I will take this at 2 tiers. tier one, which was His Excellency, Minister Saif spoke about this morning, is the vision of the UAE, the 2050. That's a very long way, to plan for such energy diversity. And the main purpose of that vision, and I thank him for his foresight and vision, is to create the right dynamics of diversified portfolios of energy. What this energy policy means is that all energies are welcomed as long as they can, compete with a strategic, angle. And I would like to take now the second-tier nuclear and show you and explain to you a multidimensional why nuclear fits in this kind of a strategy and vision. In 2007, the government conducted a very detailed analysis of the sources of energy. And of that analysis, we came to the conclusion that we need to continue burning gas to make electricity, that we need renewable, we need nuclear, and we need also to look for other sources of energy. So at that time, Masdar was launched as the vehicle responsible to make the renewable energy project, and everybody's aware of Masdar now. And nuclear energy was being evaluated because it is a source of energy that is safe, reliable, and clean, and been operating for the past decades. So from then, we went through a detailed analysis, and the decision was made to select nuclear energy to complement the diversification of the energy source. So it's as I said, it's a clean, it is safe, reliable, and the last bit of it, which is also secure, because it gives you a base load of energy that's available 24/7, not intermittent. That's a base load to give you a very robust, reliable source of energy. Another thing also, with the current available technologies, you refuel every 18 months. Means you don't need any external fuel to come. You don't need any, like kind of gas supplies or ship supplies for coal or whatever. It's a very secure. It gives you that level of security from production point of view, that's technically speaking, and also from a logistics point of view, a security of supply by having, the fuel supplied for 18 months. So these are the multidimensional, benefits of nuclear. And I would like to comment just on, don't want to take the time long, but to comment on Don Penniman's point, that if shale gas compete or merchant market or regulated market, what I think personally, when you have an intelligent, diversified, smart portfolios of energies, that's always the right way to go. So that smart portfolio need to be regulated, but not the quickest win kind of a race. If you want to run a marathon, that's what all energy is about. You cannot run for the 2-3 miles and you stop, then you look for alternative energy sources and you want to run again. Is not sustainable. That's not a foresighted, approach. I will touch also on Don Penniman, and Dr. Camon. We have to think of innovation. We have to think about scientific and human capital development. We have to think of long term when we embark on energy solutions, because nuclear run for 60 years.
Thank you very much. So our session is rapidly heading toward its end. I'd like to give the opportunity to the audience. If there are questions in the audience, there are individuals with microphones who will come to you. So if we can take 2 or 3 questions to close out the session, if we have any from the audience at all. We have a particularly nervous audience. Do we have a question? There we are. There we are. Please, sir.
Thank you, panel, for your presentations. I'd like to ask, why is nuclear energy acceptable in France and not acceptable across the border in Germany and Italy?
So I think that's a question for our European colleagues. I'll defer to you.
That's my first question.
All right, let's let them answer that question, then we'll see where we go from there.
It's easy to say that it is accepted in France or acceptable in France and not acceptable in Germany. Of course, in France you have also a lot of activists against nuclear energy. I think that maybe the difference between France and Germany, that's my own interpretation, comes from the first oil crisis. At that time, all the developed countries have decided, in average, to develop use of nuclear energy at a level of 20% in average of the energy mix. In France, we have decided, and it was a long-term decision throughout the different governments during more than 30, 40 years, to have an energy mix with, for electricity mix, of 80% or 75%. Why? I think people, first oil crisis, we are in 73. It's not so long after, the war in Algeria, all, the crisis against oil and gas with Algeria. And I think that the reaction in France was really, really strong, with a kind of consensus at the high level, that's clear, in the elite, to have more domestic sources of electricity. So this consensus has lasted 50 years.
So I'm anxious to let His Excellency the Minister also weigh in on this question.
Small comment, as I am neither from France nor Germany, I would see small difference. In France, peaceful use of nuclear energy was a bit of a byproduct of Charles de Gaulle development of the nukes. And hence, the country was investing in both sides of the nuclear. While in Germany, they had never nuclear warheads, and there was string opposition, peaceful movement, green movement, and the end of the story I have said. They have reached first time that we will close nuclear power stations, something like 2001, and then when it was nearly undone, suddenly came Fukushima, and once again. So I would see a difference over there.
Dan, you look like you're anxious to offer something on this topic.
I don't agree totally, because frankly speaking,
it wouldn't be
France,
a nuclear panel if we didn't have some controversy, so I appreciate you guys adding that final element.
The decision to develop military use of nuclear, that was before any civilian use. So the decisions were, not exactly aligned, but
I'll add
okay.
one paragraph. My undergraduate thesis in 1978 was on why the French civil nuclear program succeeded where Germany failed, and I decided at that time it was because of Napoleon. And here's why. The Napoleonic Code centralized power in the president and acted through the prefectures. Whereas in Germany, the occupying powers imposed a basic law which divided among the lander a lot of distributed political power and added a constitutional court to avoid the accretion of power. So when Anne is right in the sense of it was Pompidou tout nuclear decision in '74 that decided to go 80%, but the fact that they were able to execute it, whereas in a place like Japan, a court with no jurisdiction can stop a reactor. That did not happen in France. And in Germany, everyone canceled each other out. That was my sophomoric undergraduate conclusion.
Well, that's quite an interesting idea. I've heard it said more than once that, and I apologize, we're running out of time for the session, but I've heard it said more than once that you need very strong executive decision-making in order to make a nuclear program successful. We've heard some interesting points today. Mr. Poneman shared with us a view that, you just can't, as they say in New England, in the United States, you just can't get there from here if you don't have nuclear energy in terms of our carbon targets. We heard two optimistic statements from Korea and the UAE about the future of nuclear energy, the way it fits in a smart portfolio. And we heard the challenges that we face in Europe, but also the opportunities that exist for peaceful coexistence of these different kinds of energy together. I think with that, I'd like to thank our panelists and ask the audience to please give them a round of applause. I apologize for the shortness of time, but we've ended the session's time. Thank you.